Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Just wanted to start off by thanking everyone who's been watching this series. As most of you know, if you're listening at this point, we had done a long series with Kansas City, which was pretty successful, and several of you in the comments were encouraging me to move on and do something different, and I was kind of getting ready to do something different myself. So appreciate the fact that you encouraged me to try something a little more challenging, which these Pirates certainly will be. And it seems like there's a fair amount of interest out there. So if you haven't subscribed, would really appreciate it if you're enjoying the series and you do that. And just wanted to give a little heads up out there to the commenters that I do read, and I read every comment, and I try to respond to most of them. And I definitely take the advice and the suggestions that you all give me, whether it's on gameplay, whether it's on the pronunciation of names, whether it's on just something stupid that I'm doing that you think I should change. Definitely take them all to heart. Now, sometimes I do have 2, 3, 4 episodes that are already recorded by the time I post episodes, so it does mean that sometimes, even if I am responding and taking your advice to heart, you might not see it for a few episodes because there's just nothing I can do with those episodes in that time that I've already played. But I've gotten a lot of advice around ticket prices, so I want to kind of start off this 2039 to 2040 season talking about that. First of all, just on finances, you can see that I went from no money available at the end of our last episode to money available now. Haven't made any transactions. All I did was reduce the scouting budget, reduce the development budget, and actually also even reduce our draft budget. Hopefully some of those moves are temporary, but I wanted to give ourselves a little flexibility in terms of money if we decide that there's anyone who's arbitration eligible that we want to try to sign to a multi-year extension rather than just one season. But back to ticket prices, I do kind of have a quote-unquote house rule where I only allow myself to change ticket prices once during the season. Actually, that's not totally fair. I'll only allow myself to raise ticket prices once during the season. I do kind of feel like it's a little unrealistic and a little bit gamey if you're just constantly raising the ticket prices to react to a team that's playing well or great fan interest. Obviously, could maximize revenue and do better with that if I did play that way. But just kind of hold myself to increasing the ticket price once a season. If I want to decrease it, that's fine. I don't think the fans will complain about that. But should have raised ticket prices midway through last season. I think I was at 13 all of last year. Didn't, and obviously with the successful season we had and some pretty good fan interest towards the end of the year, you can see that in late August, September, even into July, we were selling out a lot of games. So my inclination was to increase ticket prices just $1 to $14 a ticket for next year. But some of you that have suggested I should go even higher have convinced me to at least add another 50 cents to that. So we're going to bump the ticket prices up to $14.50 for next year, which will be a double-digit increase in ticket prices. Hopefully we can still sell over 8,900 season tickets. Obviously 10,000 would be a really nice big round number for the Pirates to get to in season tickets. Whether we've got the fan interest, fan loyalty to get there, and whether the bump in ticket prices will have a problem and a negative impact on that, who knows. But hopefully this offseason increase will allow us to generate some more money ahead of the season. And then if we're successful on the field, if we're able to kind of get some popular players re-signed or signed to new contracts this offseason, maybe by July of next season, we'll be ready, willing, and able to give the ticket prices another bump up to $15 or $16. But we will see how all of that plays out. And I know that owner goals is another thing that drives some of you crazy. It drives me crazy too, because a lot of times they're just silly and unrealistic. But I like the fact that I'm not just playing in this perfectly clean and well-defined universe. I like the fact that sometimes I have the incentive to do something silly, or if I do what I think is right, it's going to make ownership angry with me. The goals definitely can sometimes be unrealistic. I guess requesting that we reach the playoffs next season after having been a playoff team isn't unreasonable. Upgrading third base, Jim Kager certainly didn't have a great year, but I think we may stick with him next year. Hopefully we can improve our on-base percentage, but extending Rodolfo Morales is a goal that's just wackily unrealistic. Mr. Nutting increased our budget by just $8 million for next year. Rodolfo Morales is a player we picked up in a trade with Milwaukee, and he's going to be a free agent. We only paid about $1.5 million of his contract this past season. We got Milwaukee to hang on to most of it. And he's now a reliever who's looking for a 4-year contract, averaging $18.25 million a year. You would think that of all people, Bob Nutting would be extremely pleased that we wouldn't be signing him to that contract. And to be fair, as some of you have pointed out, Morales is a player who has the stamina to start, and with those 2 real good pitches and then a mediocre changeup, he probably could be a decent starter for us. We used him out of the pen this year, almost entirely, started just 6 games for us. So that probably explains a little bit why he's looking for so much money. But given that we only got an $8 million bump in our budget, and even after cutting scouting and development back a bit, we only have a little over $4 million to spend on free agents right now. It's just absolutely unrealistic and honestly financially irresponsible for Nutting to be expecting us to re-sign Rodolfo Morales to any type of contract given the amount of money he's looking for. So totally get that some of you don't like the owner goals. I don't like them either when they're wacky and unrealistic like that, but I do kind of like the fact that it adds a little flavor to the game and probably simulates to a degree in a very awkward way just some of the pressures that I'm sure you would come under as a general manager from the wackiness of owners. You think back to the owner in the movie Major League from back in the 80s. I forget what her name was, but she had some pretty crazy things that the manager and the players on that team had to deal with, and I feel like sometimes the wacky requests from the owners in OOTP are kind of a very rough proxy for that kind of nonsense. Anyway, on to the baseball. Salary arbitration, you can see we've made offers to 3 of our 4 starting pitchers who are arbitration eligible. And actually, we have made an offer to Marco Estrada also. The negotiation with him didn't go very well. And you can see he's not really interested in talking to us at this point. So we're not going to be able to get him signed before going to arbitration. But hopefully we can win the arbitration case. Also made an offer to longtime reliever Omar Gaona, who happened to change his name. He had been called Omar Ganoa for many years in Kansas City and even in the start with Pittsburgh. But he has officially changed his name to Omar Gaona now, so we're going to try to call him by the proper name. Made an offer to Tony Owens, Ishmael Heel, our backup catcher, Chris Gomez, first base / third baseman, and Jordan Owens, who may take over as center fielder next year. A player that we are going to have to move on from is Patty Peaches. Versatile infielder, was kind of our starting first baseman most of this year, but he's going to be 30 early next year. He's fragile physically, and he's really not all that great defensively. He has had some big seasons. You can see back with the White Sox a couple years ago. But the profile is of an average-ish offensive player. and he's expected to make about $8 million in arbitration. He wants $8.8 million. I've put him on the trade market, and the only market for him is just bad contracts of mediocre players in return. So for the time being, I'm actually just going to make sure that we have a $0 out there offer, a $0 offer out there to Mr. Peaches. We'll still try to trade him, a couple more times over the couple weeks we have till we get to the arbitration hearings, but Peaches won't be with us next year. So the nice thing about that is that will potentially open up about another $8 million that we can use when we get to the off season, or when we get to free agency. We're obviously already in the off season. Feel pretty good about the way that our pitching staff is going to look next year. We potentially have some holes in the outfield. We're moving on from our starting center fielder, Carbajal. We're moving on from Sergio Uribe, left fielder we picked up in the Rule 5 draft. And we're going to be moving on from Victor Avellar, left fielder that we traded for last year. So 3 relatively significant holes in our outfield. So that's one area that we clearly want to improve. Moving on from Peaches means that we're probably going to need to add at least one infielder. I think I am going to actually make an offer to Jim Kager. One of Nunning's goals is for us to improve our third base position. I've taken a look at who's going to be a free agent, and I've also kind of taken a look at players who are reasonable defensively, like Kager, who at least might offer a little bit of power. And the cost to pick up those players in trade is ridiculous, and most of them really aren't much better than Kager. Kager's also durable. So re-signing him by giving him an offer, and you can see his arbitration estimate is about $4.2 million, guarantees that we're not going to hit that owner goal. But I do think he's a real nice defensive third baseman with a little bit of a bat. He didn't hit that well for us last year, and certainly if you look over the course of his major league career, he was an above-average offensive player a couple times in his mid-20s with Baltimore. Now has been kind of trending as a more below-average offensive player. But with the glove, still would like to bring him back, even though it will make Mr. Nutting unhappy. We'll give him a $3.8 million offer to get things started. Not quite what he's looking for. Will be a little cheap and only increase it by $50,000. Not willing to think about it. I prefer not to anger him too much. Hopefully $3.9 million will get it done. Nope. It's probably going to take $4 million, but yeah. All right, so maybe we'll get him signed for $4 million. And then the big decisions go with some guys that are a little more expensive. Our starting catcher, Adam Fuchs. I love that he's an Iron Man. Love that he's a good defensive catcher. Love that he's got a great personality in the clubhouse. Coming off the best season of his career, was a first-time All-Star this year. Hit .270 for us. Made $1.5 million. The issue is his arbitration estimate is almost over $5 million. We can probably get him signed for a little less than $5 million. It's a lot of money. The issue, as you might expect, though, is that it doesn't look like there's much out there in the free agent market. And given that our pitching staff did so well this past year with Fuchs and Ishmael Heel as our backup, who's even better defensively, I think I'm going to try to bring Fuchs back for one more year. We've got Tony Fonseca for one more year, who's our excellent defensive shortstop we picked up from KC. We obviously picked up Fuchs also from KC. I like our young pitching staff, and we're basically bringing them all back. I want to try to keep the defense and the catchers around them as intact as possible. I know that some of you don't really believe this is a 94-win team, and quite honestly, I kind of agree with you, but even if we regress a little bit next season, still should definitely be in the mix for the playoffs. And I think that kind of keeping the pitching catching tandems that we've had intact as much as possible and keeping our defense intact as much as possible is probably the way to hopefully get another playoff run out of this team, and hopefully a longer playoff run than we had this year when we got bounced 3-0 in the AL or the NLDS. So we actually are going to make an offer to Fuchs. He's actually interested in a multi-year extension. Could we? Looking for an average of $6.9 million. I like the personality. The bat is certainly a below average bat, as you can see over the course of his career, but it's not a horrible bat, especially for a catcher. The fact that he's an Iron Man and good defensively is a bonus. I don't think that I can offer food, and he's also actually very popular locally, so we'll get a 1 or 2 point bump in fan interest for for whatever that's worth if we re-sign him. I might try to do a 4 or 5 year deal. I don't think I can give him close to $7 million a year, but if we can get him for a little less money, I'll throw at least a 5 year deal out there. And if he doesn't go for that, or he comes back with a crazy number, then we'll just try to get him signed for the 1 year for next season. Actually, I kind of prefer just signing him the 1 year for next season. He's going to be 31 years old late next season. Yeah, I definitely don't want to do a real long-term deal with him. If we can get like a 3 year deal with maybe a team option for the 4th, if I'll go for that, that might be worth it. I have a feeling we may be damaging our relationship with Adam Fuchs by even putting this offer in front of him. He's looking for 6 years at $6.9 million a year. We're going to offer him 4 years at $5.3 million a year. I can't imagine he's going to have any interest at all in this contract. Yeah, he's lowered his demand a little bit to $6.8 million. I'm going to up it just a tiny bit, and if he won't go for it, which he's not even going to go for it, we're still $1.5 million a year apart. I might just see if we can get him for the 1 year as we get close to arbitration. 1 year at $4.7 million. $4.8. Uh-oh. Not happy with our low. Ooh, we're going to end up, if we don't get this offer accepted to him, we'll pump it up to even $5 million. If not, we'll just make the offer to him in arbitration, but clearly we're not going to get a long-term deal with Fuchs at this point. Well, he's willing to think about the $5 million, so if we're able to get him signed and avoid arbitration, not the worst thing in the world. So now we're left with the two pitchers, Edgar Flores and Ernesto Moreno. Moreno, I really like, former number 1 draft pick, first round draft pick of the Pirates. The issue is he's been a closer, and his arbitration estimate is about $6 million. He can also be a starter. He's a popular player, so I'm inclined to try to bring him back. But given that this is only his first arbitration year, if he's a successful closer again next season, or if we switch him and he becomes a successful starter, his arbitration number is going to be even higher. So I'm hoping that the team is once again very competitive next season. But if it's not, for whatever reason, injuries, bad performance, regression to the mean, losing out on the incredible luck we had in 2039, in 2040. He's a guy that we could look to trade around the trade deadline next year just because he's starting to get pretty expensive for us. But I want to try to bring him back for now. Looking for 6.6. Let's see if we can sign him for 5.75. I'd prefer not to promise him a starting rotation spot. He's willing to think about that. So big money, especially for the Pirates for a closer, but he's a pretty important reliever for us and a guy who can start. Edgar Flores, I am more torn on. Another guy who can definitely start. The mediocre movement and the horrible control really scare me. He is a good guy in the clubhouse. And he's been an average-ish pitcher over the course of his major league career, but you can see he's been more effective the last 2 seasons overall since we took over, when he's been primarily in the pen as opposed to when he was a regular starter those first couple years of his career. The arbitration number 1.3, so we can probably get him for a little less than that, is not horrible. So we're going to see if we can get him signed for next year also. Conceivably, we could try to trade him and move on from him. I don't know that I can promise him a closer role. He's willing to think about $1.15 million, so that's progress. So we've made an offer to Estrada. He doesn't want to talk extension with us. We've made him so angry. Everybody else we've made an offer to, except for Pat Peaches. We'll try to trade him again, just to kind of show you what I was talking about. And you will see that off and on over the last day or two in real time, as I've been thinking about this episode, I've put Peaches out there a lot of times, obviously getting the same people back, because it's all been on this same day, this first day of the offseason. The only 2 offers are Juan Velasquez from Kansas City. Who's going to be making, I guess, about $890,000. He must be a guy they sign internationally, but a first baseman without much power, no speed, awful defensively. He did hit .343 in his first action with the Royals last year, but given our focus is on having really good team defense, I don't really have any interest in bringing him on board. And then the other guy who's always been out there is Danny Mendez, a guy who's going to be arbitration eligible, expected to make about $5 million next year. So that is less than Peaches is expected to make. He's a versatile defensive player, good personality. He's not a perfect fit at any defensive position. He's a second baseman without the turn double play and the error rating that you'd like, or he's a third baseman without the arm that you'd like. I just don't know that I want to be spending $5 million on him either, even though it is, potentially less than we'd be spending on Peaches. Although Mendez is younger, he's been a very average-ish, the definition of average-ish as far as his OPS plus and his WRC plus over the course of his career. We can save, about $3 million if we were to bring on Mendez rather than Peaches. But I don't love Mendez either, so I almost think I'm more inclined to let Peaches hit free agency, see if maybe the Dodgers let Mendez hit free agency, and then see if maybe there are some other surprising players who end up being out there as free agents, or if there's some players that 2 or 3 months from now we can potentially sign to a contract or trade for. The trade market can always evolve. What people are looking for some younger infielders could change in the coming months. So those 2 guys that we could get for Peaches, neither of them really just excited me all that much. I guess there's an argument to, if we're just going to let Peaches go, to bring Velasquez on board. But like I said, I just really don't like the awful defense. First baseman who can't run, can't field, doesn't have much power. just a very unexciting player for me that I'd prefer not to have on my major league roster. And then Mendez actually does intrigue me a little bit more. He's got a little speed. I mean, he hit 50 doubles 3 years ago with the Dodgers. Hit almost 300. He's versatile defensively. He's actually kind of almost a cheaper, and dare I say a little better version of Peaches. I think he is. Peaches is fragile. He's a little older. I think, I probably undersold what we had been being offered for Peaches, because if we can get Mendez signed for a little less than $5 million for next year, it's not perfect, but I think he's better than Peaches. So I actually am totally rethinking this. And I mean, the issue is that I was thinking that if we freed up the $8 million from Peaches, that would give us money in free agency to actually do something if we wanted to. If we get rid of Peaches for Mendez, we're only going to be freeing up about $3 million, which will still give us money to do something. But as I think about it more, I don't mind this trade. I'm going to see if we can get more from the Dodgers than just Mendez, but it's sad that picking up a slightly above average corner infielder on October 26th could be the big move that your team could make for this entire offseason, but that is life as GM of the Pirates when they're owned by Bob Nutting. All right, we've got a deal in place for Peaches that I actually like. We're going to get Mendez, who I think is a little bit better player. Just as versatile, if not more versatile defensively. Maybe a little bit better hitter, younger and cheaper. I guess he's just worn out his welcome with the Dodgers. Can also get Hugo Painter. And he's a AA or a AAA reliever, but nice personality to have in the minor league system, and somebody who we could certainly have on the major league roster in a few years if we have some injuries. And then they'll also throw in a little bit of cash for us. So I like this deal, actually. We're going to make the trade. Bring on Mendez. You can see that definitely freed up some more money for free. Ooh, did I screw this up? Was Mendez not arbitration eligible? I think that's what I did. We still got something for Peaches, but yeah, I was... Mendez is arbitration eligible. No, he's a free agent. Okay, yeah, I did screw that up. But we still got a little cash back, and we can see what Mendez... But it says he's arbitration eligible. What am I missing? He's not interested in talking to us. Yeah, he's got to be arbitration eligible. What am I smoking here? All right, well, we are going to go and we are going to offer him $4.85 million, even though he doesn't want anything to do with us right now because he's been sent from the large market Los Angeles Dodgers to the small market Pittsburgh Pirates. But we'll put that offer out to Mendez. And hopefully we can start signing some of these guys that we've made these arbitration offers to as we also get closer to award season and find out the big excitement for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Will our brilliant young outfielder, Isaiah Hill, be National League MVP, in addition to the foregone conclusion that he will be National League Rookie of the Year. And we'll be finding that out shortly. And the other thing we did offline since our last episode is we made an offer to a ton of pitching coaches, managers, and hitting coaches throughout our minor league system, particularly in the lower minors where we had some pretty mediocre coaches that had been that we just retained over the first 2 years of this playthrough. But I think it could be a big boost for our player development going forward if we can get most of these better coaches that we've now made offers to signed over the next week or two, and to replace those less qualified coaches down in the lower levels of our minor league system. All right, some good news here on October 30th when we've gotten a ton of the players that we made arbitration offers to signed. And as you can see, we've also signed a bunch of our minor league free agents. But Fuchs back at catcher, Owens is a reliever, Gotti is a starter, Gomez at first or third, Flores back at closer, Moreno back in as a reliever for us. Fans happy to have Moreno back. Jim Kager going to be back at third. Omar Gaona back as a reliever. Fans happy with that extension. Tony Santana, top pitcher, signed through arbitration. Fans pleased with that. Heriberto Rosales. And then also hearing from a bunch of the coaches that we're making offers to. But those signings, looks like the three of them that they mentioned all gave us just little 1-point bumps in fan interest, but better than nothing. And as we take a look at salary arbitration at this point, still waiting to hear back from Jordan Owens and Ishmael Heel. Did Rosales, maybe I read that wrong. Did he refuse our contract? I feel like we did make an offer to Rosales. Oh, really close and didn't convince him. That's rare to get that one. I just see stuff and I just assume they agree. So we may end up, I felt like I'd made an offer to him. So we may end up going to arbitration with Heriberto Rosales. His arbitration estimate is $1.3 million. Can we get him signed for $1.25 and just get it over with? He's willing to think about that, so that's progress there. So we've got the offers out to Rosales, Heel, and Owens, and we've made arbitration offers to both Estrada and Mendez, who don't want to talk to us. Maybe we'll be able to re-engage with them over the next week or two before we get to the arbitration hearings. Would love to get them signed before we get into that sometimes contentious negotiation. Actually, it's not really a negotiation, it's an arbitration. That's why it's called arbitration. But at least we are getting most of the guys we wanted to get signed. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do much with these free agents, all looking for either wacky amounts of money or more money than we're willing to spend. But we'll still check in again on them with all of those players as we get closer to free agency, just to see if maybe someone's requests are a little more reasonable than I think they are today. And we've gotten Ishmael Heel signed as well, and we are making slow but steady progress with our coaches. You can see we're now all set at the major league level and the higher levels of the minors, but still have a number of pending offers and vacancies in some of the lower levels of our system. And we've gotten center fielder Jordan Owens signed as well. So at this point on the salary arbitration situation, just waiting to hear back from Heriberto Rosales. And then we'll touch base with Estrada and Mendez right now while we're thinking about it. I don't think either of them is going to want to talk to us, so we'll just hope that we can win the potential arbitration cases with both of those gentlemen and hopefully have them on the team next year. With Estrada and Mendez, I don't think they have any particular problems with our manager. I think it's more just the negotiation. I don't want to look at the minor league team. Yeah. Jan Vasquez, after a brilliant rookie season as manager, has pretty good relationships with everyone on the team. So it's really just the negotiation why they don't want to talk to us, which is kind of what I thought. Obviously not perfect, but whether or not we win or lose the arbitration cases, we've made offers to both, so we'll have both of them with us next season. I don't want to say both of them back with us because although Estrada will be back with us, Mendez will be a new addition after trading away Patty Peaches to pick up Mr. Danny Mendez. And we've gotten Heriberto Rosales signed, so good with arbitration. Let's find out. Looks like we might have a Gold Glove winner. Tony Cook, our second baseman. The second baseman who we may want to move on from this offseason, even though he was a all-star, is a rookie last year and a Gold Glove winner this year, and has a nice personality. Just not much of a hitter at the major league level. Would love it if he was a guy coming off the bench for us, but still don't feel great about him as a second baseman. But by the same token, we're the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're going to have him for the major league minimum next year. And he's been a Gold Glove winner and one of the most unlikely all-stars in history in his first 2 seasons. He's durable, he's solid defensively, and he's got a good personality. Maybe we shouldn't be thinking about moving on from him. I just really struggle with players who are the epitome of the Mendoza line. And it looks like we have a Silver Slugger. I would have to think that would be Mr. Isaiah Hill, but maybe we'll get another one. I can't think of who else it would be. Yeah, right fielder Isaiah Hill, probably the first of a lot of hardware he's going to be earning this offseason. And we may find out about a potential Rookie of the Year for him tomorrow. And then a few days away again till we find out whether he's able to get that rare double award with the Rookie of the Year and the Most Valuable Player. And I think the only question about the NL Rookie of the Year is whether Isaiah Hill is going to be a unanimous winner. I can't see how he won't be. Yep, not surprisingly, unanimous winner, Isaiah Hill. Brilliant year, as we've talked about. Durable, fast, respectable defensive outfielder with a brilliant bat. 309 batting average, 44 homers, 129 driven in, 118 runs scored, 44 doubles, and a league best 8.4 WAR as a rookie. The only question now is whether he will add a MVP to his hardware case. And we have an MVP, and it's the first time we've had an MVP in this playthrough, believe it or not, with all the success we had in our 16 seasons in Kansas City. First MVP for us, and Isaiah Hill, 27 of the 30 first-place votes. Interesting, a former Kansas City Royal who we traded away many years ago when we were running that team, finishes second in the voting for the Phillies. But Isaiah Hill, the 24-year-old former number 1 overall pick from Saranac Lake, New York, in the beautiful Adirondack Mountains, has joined only Fred Lynn of the Boston Red Sox and Ichiro of the Seattle Mariners as one of the now 3 players in Major League Baseball history to win the Rookie of the Year and the Most Valuable Player of the Year award in the same season. Congratulations, Isaiah. We're looking forward to having you on the team for another 2 or 3 seasons before we have to trade you away because you're making too much money. And we're getting ready for those arbitration hearings that involve Estrada and Mendez. We've made a few other moves, waived and DFA'd a couple people from the 40-man roster. We finally have filled up all of our coaching staff, and with the bulk of the moves we've made, you can see we've got about $12.5 million for free agents, $10 million for extensions. That'll change a little bit depending on whether or not we win these arbitration cases. And again, we have cut scouting and development significantly from where they were last season. And we've also taken a little bit of money, as I said, out of the draft. But honestly, we don't need as much since we're going to be picking near the end of the first round as opposed to near the top of the first round or at the top of the first round where we picked the past couple years, our first 2 years in Pittsburgh. So we'll cut that back a bit to give ourselves a little bit more money potentially. We'd definitely like to put some more back into scouting and development, but we also still have some holes to fill on the team. We did end up bringing Fuchs back, and we made the trade for Mendez as an infielder. Feel pretty good about our pitching staff, but we are definitely short an outfielder or two right now, so we're going to have to figure out how to address that need in a cost-effective fashion once we do get to free agency. And it looks like we won one and we lost one in the arbitration hearings. Mendez, we won at $4.85 million. Strada, we lost at $3.776 million. So he made over $1 million more than we had offered to him. So we were way off in that. Probably explains why he was so angry. You can see that loss there weakened our money available for free agents a bit, but now we do have Estrada back, and his morale is still great despite the unpleasantness of the arbitration situation with him. And we have made it to the beginning of free agency, international free agents. We'll see if there's anyone all that interesting out there. Again, just a quick look, simply based on the star ratings to see if there's someone we should. Shortstop Victor Serrano. He's definitely an interesting player. Potentially a really good glove. Not a great bat, but if he fully develops and he can be kind of average in contact and above average gap power, he's got decent speed, not going to strike out or walk a ton. Or not going to strike out. Oh yeah, he's not going to strike out a ton or walk a ton. But he is an interesting player. Victor Serrano, we may make an offer to him right away. Mario Aguilera. Whoa. Some interesting players here. Serrano, who we mentioned, and then I talked about how we need outfielders. Left fielder Emilio Moreno. Looking for big money, but has a pretty nice bat. I think $13 million plus for the 28-year-old is going to be something we just can't afford. But he's a guy with some pop. And then Jose Negrete, he's looking for less money. Very nice defensively. We've got Owens back as our starting center fielder for this year, but I do feel like Negrete maybe better than him. He's young. He's got a good work ethic. I am very intrigued by Jose Negrete. Yeah, I just want to get an offer out to these guys before I forget about it. Minor league contract, which becomes a guaranteed 1-year major league contract worth 1.2 if promoted. Yeah, we need an outfielder. He's really good defensively. He's got great speed. I mean, he conceivably could be our starting center fielder over over Owens. And we've got the optionality of having him in the minors. We'll absolutely offer him that contract. Minor league with major league option. Yeah, we'll meet that demand. Submit that offer to him. And then Victor Serrano, really nice glove, has some speed. Question is whether he's going to hit enough, but certainly, yeah, also a minor league contract worth 1.2 if promoted. We'll give you that offer also. So we'll see what happens with those two. We're not even going to mess around here at the beginning of free agency. We'll also just take a look at who the top major league free agents are. Jorge Pozo looks like an excellent starting pitcher. Looking for a little more money than we'll be able to afford, but he's strong. Juan Caraballo, really nice bat, fragile player, expecting to make over $20 million. Not going to fit with Pittsburgh. Khalil Watson, who was a free agent last year at second base, back on the open market. Youngwon P, starting pitcher, coming out of Colorado. Obviously, he hasn't put up beautiful numbers there, but he has put up really nice Sierras and pretty decent WARs. Looking for more money than we'll be able to afford. Sean Jacobs, second baseman. Again, way too much money for us. I think that's going to be a common theme. Jonah Diaz, similar situation. Max De Jesus, interesting pitcher. Can't afford him. O'Neal Cruz, 41 years old, still playing. Looking for $25 million. Thank you, but not. Eddie Chivera, our old buddy with the Royals. Had a really nice run with the Royals, and nice way to kind of finish up this episode, because I did mention that Maxime De La Cruz is the player that we traded away when we were the GM of the Royals. Looks like it was 5+ years ago at this point, 6 seasons ago, to bring on Eddie Chivera to the Royals. Maxime De La Cruz now finishing second in the NL MVP voting this season. But Eddie Chivera, with a very successful career with those Royals, won the last 3 World Series that we won as GM of the Royals. He was a member of those teams. He's been pretty successful the last couple of years since we left. Clearly too expensive for us, but love the Iron Man injury proneness for a pitcher. Love the 4 well above average to slightly above average pitches. Good movement, good control. Extreme ground baller, throws in the mid-90s. Just a really nice pitcher in my opinion. And Danny DeAndrade, wrecked, looking for $40 million. So yeah, we will not be involved in the market for any of these players when we hit free agency, but and you can see now that we flipped over to the new year. We've got money for free agents. We don't have much in the way of any money for extensions. So clearly that means that the arbitration numbers for some of our players are going to start getting up there. And we've also got Tony Fonseca's team option in there now. But Fuchs is almost $9 million. Mendez 6.6, Estrada 5.5, Santana 6.3, Ricky Gotti 5. Every time I say Ricky Gotti, I think of Ricky Bobby. Where's Tony? Did I talk about Tony Santana? Yeah, 6.3. So actually those numbers for Tony Santana have come down. He's been looking for like 22, 21 million a year every time we've checked in on him about a possible extension. I don't know that we can even afford this, but 16 million a year for him. Great personality, only 25 years old, coming off an 11-9 year with a 3.16 ERA. He's got a 6-pitch arsenal, including a filthy slider, a really nice fastball, a good curve, solid changeup splitter, and an average sinker. So his stuff is nasty. He's got good movement plus control. I don't think that contract can hurt us. We might have to trade him at some point just because we won't be able to afford it. But we've got a lot to think about in our next episode. We've got money to spend for free agents. As I mentioned, we're not going to be able to actually sign any of the top free agents, but there may be some outfielders out there for us to look at. Well, we'll take a quick look at the outfielders available right now because that's probably our biggest need. Got to look for someone looking to make less money. And you can see, we dip into the 2.5-star players, and we've got tons of choices. Victor Avejar could potentially bring him back. In free agency, he's looking for a lot less money than he had indicated he might be going for when we tried to sign him a couple of weeks ago. Not a huge player anymore, but that home run bat is still intriguing, even though he was pretty brutal for us last season after we picked him back up in trade. But happy to have those initial offers out to Serrano and Negrete. Would be great to get either of those guys, hopefully both of those guys, into our system. And then we're going to have some more decisions to make as to how this offseason goes, how free agency goes. As I said, I think outfield is the primary need that we have. Clearly, if we get Negrete signed, that may diminish the need a little bit, but still think we need a corner outfielder with a bat. And Victor Avejar would clearly fit the bill on that front. But there's a lot of players out here who might too, including a lot of former Royals if you look closely. Jacob Guerrero, Jasmed Diaz, Victor Avejar, who we talked about. So there will be a lot to think about in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.